Oh my goodness. So you wouldn't think that changing your filming location would make all of that much of a difference, but I have like had to stop and start this video so many times because I don't know, I'm like a little bit out of the routine, I guess. Just a heads up, I did not move again. We're just in the guest bedroom in our house and it might be a little bit echoey. There's like a bed and a dresser and you can kind of see the dresser behind me. There's furniture in here, but it's just like sparsely decorated, so it might just be a little bit echoey, but I thought it would be nice to maybe try and film in some natural lighting. Don't get used to it. I don't know if I'm changing my sleep schedule again, but for right now I figured we could film in some natural lighting. However, you're not here to sit here and hear me ramble about lighting and sleep schedules. You clicked on this video because the title is probably very apparent that today we are going to talk about my favorite shades from all of my BH Cosmetics palettes that I have. I really love these types of videos. I feel like every time I do them, even if it's like least favorite shades too, whatever shades I end up picking, they almost make like a really cohesive color story in and of themselves. Like it's just so much fun to look at. Absolutely love to see these types of videos. I do plan on doing this for other brands as well. I think the next brand that I would do would probably be Juvia's Place, just because these are the two brands that I have like the most of in my collection. But yeah, I think that is all the rambling that I need to do. So I'm going to get myself a little bit more situated and then we're going to jump right on into this. Oh, I almost forgot, Ruth, just for you. Hello. Thanks for coming back to check out another video. So now we can get into this. I figured it would be easiest to start with my favorite shade from the Birthstone palettes. So we'll do them in order by month. But the first one I will show you is the Amethyst for February. And this is what the inside looks like. I feel like my favorite shade from here is a little bit surprising. I feel like you guys are thinking I'd probably pick some of these berry tone mattes, but I actually went with this Rebel shade right here. It is just such a pretty like icy blue shade, but it does have a little bit of a purpleness to it. So it pairs so nicely with these other shades that are in the palette. I absolutely love it as like a really fun, like adventurous inner corner highlight, but it's also a really nice lid shade. It's one of those shades where every time I pull out this palette, like I want to use that shade. I want to put that shade somewhere in my eye look. So that is my favorite shade from the February palette, or the Amethyst palette, I should say. All right, so next up we will do the Emerald for May palette from them. So this one was a little bit hard to pick. But at the end of the day, my eye is always drawn to this Artsy AF shade right here. Now in the swatch clip, I haven't yet edited that, but when I was like, you know, doing it and looking at it through the viewfinder, I feel like the swatch of this, oh my goodness, came off a little bit more darker than it does like when you put it on your eyes. Like I feel like in the swatch it almost looks like it has a black or brown base to it, but in real life it doesn't. It's just like a straight up nice darker green shimmer. But yeah, I just absolutely love playing around with that shade. It's quickly just become one of my favorite greens throughout like my whole collection, and I love when I use this palette and pair it with the Citrine for November. Like the yellows in here play so nicely with the green in this one. Like it's just a very versatile kind of green shade. All right, so next we will do Sapphire for September. This one probably is the most shocking for favorite shades in here. I feel like you probably think I would have picked this shade, but I didn't. I picked this blue. It's called Cool. I just absolutely, I don't know what it is. It's one of those shades where every time I open this palette, that is what my eye is like drawn to, is to just want to use this, want to put that on my eyes. And it's just such a pretty shade of blue. I think that it has like a more kind of purple undertone, so it's very wearable as well. Like I feel like it's a blue that you could pair with maybe some more like toned down neutral colors, like a brown or a purple or something like that, and get away with that as your lid color and still make it feel like very comfortable, like almost very work appropriate. Okay, so Citrine for November is the last Birthstone palette that I have to show you. And so my favorite shade from this is this shade right here. It's called Dynamic. It is just so pretty. It's such a fun shade too. It's almost like a little bit of a red rose gold shade, like not straight up rose gold, but not straight up red either. It's just, it's been really interesting and really fun to play with this palette. I feel like a lot of the shades within these birthstone palettes have been super surprising in that you look at them and the way they look in the pan, they play a little bit differently on your eyes, but not like in a, oh, I don't like it kind of way, in like a, ooh, that's exciting. Like I'm more interested to use that kind of shade. All right, so let's move on into the, what were these called? The Say It collection, I think. I got 2 of those like 9-pan palettes that they did. So the first one I have is the Lookin' Like a Snack. You have to say it that way. But anyway, my favorite shade from this palette, this is what it is looking like. So my favorite shade would be this really nice dark berry tone called Hit That. The names in this palette are a little, like, I don't really want to say them on camera. That one's fine, but some of the other ones. But anyway, these berry tones, I don't know, ever since like the fall rolled around, I've just been super into the berry tones and wearing them as much as I can and pairing them with like any kind of color I can think of. Like, it's just been a lot of fun. So obviously out of all of this palette, this is the most like berry toned leaning shade, and it is my favorite. All right, so then we have the Do Not Disturb palette. If you were curious, this is what I am wearing on my eyes today. I thought it was only appropriate to wear a BH Cosmetics palette if we're doing a whole video dedicated to them. So from this palette, this one is more of a like purple blue, just really fun palette. I cannot get enough of this. And so my favorite shade from this, I think it's called On Hold, but this shade right here, it's what I have all over my lids today. So yeah, it is called On Hold. It is just such a pretty blue. I don't know, it's not really like all that unique maybe, but it's again one of those blues, kind of like that cool shade from the Sapphire palette, whereas that cool shade is a bit more like darker, maybe poppy, more jewel toned, we'll say. This one is like a lighter blue, but it's still a very like approachable and wearable blue, just like that cool shade, at least in my opinion. The Sapphire palette and this palette are really great for like, oh, I want to dip my toes into blue kind of shades and like pair them with other things. Because honestly, before this Do Not Disturb palette, pairing like these shades of blues with the purples that are in here isn't something that I would have necessarily thought of, but I've had a lot of fun coming into this palette and creating looks from it. All right, so now we will move on into the 16-pan palettes that I have from them. So the first 2 are from their like brunch collection, and the backgrounds of them are a little bit reflective, and I don't know how that's going to play in the natural lighting, so I'm just going to give you a heads up now. But the first we have is the Blueberry Muffin, which probably would be my favorite palette. I don't know, it goes between this and Passion in Paris. But this is what this looks like on the inside. Again, I think it is a little too reflective, but this shade right here, Yummy, is my favorite shade. I don't know, it's such a pretty like taupey kind of gray purple shade. It is just so pretty for like wintertime looks. I cannot stop myself from doing this one look in particular using this palette. So the look that I do is I'll go in and put Fluffy, which is the kind of peachy shade, all over in my crease and bring it pretty far up. And then I'll go in and with the 350 degrees shade, put that in my crease and create that like gradient effect. And then I'll take the Decadent shade and put that in my outer V and really smoke it out, like make this like a more intense eye look. And then put Yummy as my lid shade, and then use either sometimes I'll do Sugared or sometimes I'll do Cravings as like the inner corner like highlight shade. I don't know, it's just been a tried and true fail-safe look that I've been into. And I know it's kind of funny, it doesn't incorporate any of the blues in here, but Yummy as a whole within this palette does work really well with those like more brown shades, as well as the more like blue tone shades as well. All right, so the next palette that I have is the Avocado Toast palette. So if I open this bad boy up, this is what it looks like on the inside. So many pretty shades to choose from. So which shade did Haley pick? I picked this Haas shade right here. I don't know what it is. It's like a dirty green gold, and it's so grungy, and I love it. It is such a nice, interesting shade. And again, it's one of those shades I feel like, one, you can pair it with like a bunch of the shades that come within this palette, like the greens and the reds and everything. But it is a shade that would also, I think, go really nicely with like browns or like more intense kind of red shades, like straight up primary colors, because this red that they have in here, Paprika, is more on like the warmer kind of brick tone red side. But I do think this Haas shade would go really well with like more primary colors, really pretty with yellows, like just anything like that. So it is definitely my favorite shade, and it is one of the shades that again, I always have to put it on my eyes when I pull out this palette. That was really how I was going about, like trying to decide what is my favorite shade. It's one, what is my eye drawn to like when I first open the palette? Two, what is a shade that I'm just like, every time I open this palette, I have to put that on my lids. So then up next, we're going to talk about the Passion in Paris palette. Again, such a beautiful palette, but if you do not like dark, smoky kind of eye looks, I would say to stay away from this one because it does have like a lot of darker shades in it. But my favorite shade would have to be this one right here. Now my French is terrible. It's been a long time since I've been in French class, but Pompidou, I think is how you say it. I will leave it on the screen for you, but it is just this really pretty red shade, and it's not even like a full-on red. It's like a berry purpley toned red, but it's not really a berry toned either. I know that sounds really funny, but I think if you own this palette and you play with it and you know what that shade and how it performs, I think you'll understand what I mean. It is red, but it's also purple. It's cool toned. It's really nice. And that's the thing. I think cool toned reds are kind of hard to find in the market. I feel like we see a lot more warmer toned reds, so I feel like that adds to the interestingness of it. But yeah, I was really surprised that out of this palette, I did end up picking like a matte shade. Like I am all about my shimmers, and usually that's what I gravitate towards. All right, so up next is the Party in Puerto Rico palette. This is a really fun palette. This definitely reminds me of the Natasha Denona, was it Sunset or Sunrise? I get those two confused, but whichever one had like some of those more like magenta pink like pops of color and the yellows in it, I do feel like this is a pretty good dupe. So my favorite shade is actually this matte orange right here. It's just so fun to play with. It's called Culebra. It's been really interesting. Like I did not think that the matte orange would be my favorite shade from in this palette. But I have absolutely enjoyed using this and pairing it with a single eyeshadow that I have that's called Candy Corn from Dandelions. It is such a fun monochromatic look. It's not one that I would do like all the time, but it's just a lot of fun. And so I've really enjoyed like exploring more of these orange shades. Like before this palette, I don't think orange would have even been like a color that I would have really considered. Like maybe like oranges that lean more on like the brown side, you know what I mean? But this is like a straight up orange, and like I said, it's just been a lot of fun. I don't feel like it makes me look sickly in any way, so happy to have made that discovery. All right, so then up next is Lost in Los Angeles, which is the Pastel Rainbow palette. So I believe when I did my palette bingo where I used all of the 6-pan 16 eyeshadow, when I used all of the 16-pan eyeshadow palettes that I own, I think I told you guys what my favorite shade was in that video as well, because I was hoping I would get one shimmer and I didn't. But this shade down here, The Hills, it just has my heart. I know there are so many like other pretty shimmers within this palette, and there really are. This one was a hard one to pick what my favorite shade was, but The Hills is just this really pretty icy pink shade, and I just love pairing that with like darker like lid, or not lid, but darker crease and outer V shades, and it's just really poppy and bright. It's just a lot of fun. All right, so my last 16-pan palette is Smitten in Switzerland, which again, this is just one of the tried and true favorites. Mine is in the older packaging, so you'll have to excuse that. But surprisingly, I picked Brisk, even though there are some nice grungy greens in here, and you would think that's what Haley would be drawn to, or even these berry tones, you know? But no, it is this Brisk shade. So that makes for like 3 blue shades that I picked, you know, as favorite shades throughout all of these palettes, which is super surprising. But this Brisk shade, it's just, it almost has like a interesting shift to it. Hopefully you can see that in the swatch, but it goes from like blue, purple to kind of like a silver. It's just so fun to play with and so interesting. I think this is one of the more like underrated palettes from the travel series. I don't feel like this one got a lot of hype, but it's still been a lot of fun. I'm glad that I have it. All right, so then the last one that I have is this big guy right here. This was their holiday release for 2021, the Lit List palette. I don't know if I'll be able to get it all into, well, yeah, because I'm sitting further back. So here it is all in frame for you guys. There's a lot of goodness in here to choose from. So it was a struggle, I'm not gonna lie, because really, minus this red shade right here in dead center, because this is a pressed glitter, this whole like column though is what catches my eye when I like pull up this palette, or when I pull out this palette. So it was really hard to like pick a shade. And then surprisingly, after swatching and playing around more with this palette, I actually didn't choose a shade from that column. I went with this shade here, Tinsel, which is a light green shade, but it's almost like got a little bit of like gold in it. And then also like, it's kind of olivey. I don't know. I'm really not the best at explaining colors, but you guys are seeing swatches, so you can make your own decisions on what that color says to you or like how it speaks to you. But to me, it is just this light olive golden green color, and it's very interesting and very fun to play with. I really like to, when I use that kind of shade, I like to do a more monochromatic look with this palette. And so this shade right here, the Lit List, I love fading those two in together, but I do like the lighter green better than the Lit List. So, it's called Lit List. The whole palette is the Lit List. But anyway, that's it. That is all of my BH Cosmetics palettes with my favorite shades from them. Hopefully what you're seeing now is maybe like a full-on shot of all of the shades together. I really think that this did come out looking like a very cohesive, fun Hailey palette. Like, just a lot of fun. So maybe one day we could sit down and maybe do a full-on look with the like most favorite shades and see how that actually turns out. But I had so much fun doing this. Hopefully you guys are up for round 2, because obviously we have to talk about my least favorite shades. Now, it's not going to be this video. It'll be next week's video, but I'm going to film it right after this, so you're going to see me in the same look. But yeah, if you want to see my least favorite shades, that will be coming. And I don't know, I think I said it in the beginning, I do intend to do this with other brands. I'm thinking Juvia's Place will be the next one on board, but that is all I have for you guys. Hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you're having a good day, a good night, or a good whatever, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.